Okay, so we're going to continue now with a optimization example that is relevant to the environmental analysis that we have been applying earlier, in particular the radiation analysis. So for this, I have updated the file for the radiation analysis. So earlier on in this layer, it was a 1 meter high wall. What I've done now is to adjust it to become a full wall and instead updated the definition in such a way that it uses the additional context, which is this particular surface, but as a solid difference, right? This particular surface itself to a series of duplicated windows, right? And what I was trying to do was to connect the number of duplications that I have within this particular window, and I try to maximize the amount of total daylight incident radiation within this um, example. Okay, so this is just an example. It may or may not make sense to have maximal internal solar radiation because this will increase the heat gain, but this is just a very quick way for you to understand what um, how we can use the maximize versus the minimize tools for Galapagos within the context of a practical example. Right, in this case, how many numbers of windows we want to have. Okay, so this particular file will also be available in the Notion website. And so what I will do now is that I will just double click on the solver, right? And instead of trying to maximize now, let's change this to minimize. Okay, so you can experiment with this with the file. But now, as of now, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 copies of this. The slider goes from 1 to 10. Now I want to minimize the amount of solar radiation, incident radiation, the total solar incident radiation. Okay, I go to solvers. I will still use the evolutionary solver, but you can feel free to experiment with simulated annealing as well. Okay, so I will just quickly start the solver, and you can see that it is already beginning the analysis. Wait, okay, let me just stop the solver so you can see you can always cancel it at any time. Let's turn off the facade first so that it's much more easy to visualize as we are going ahead with the analysis. So I want to display this. um, Building context is shown. These are the windows. Okay, so I want to show both of this, and now let's just go back here and let me just scrub this back to the top. Okay, and then double click here, minimize solvers, and then start solver. Okay, so it's going to randomize the slider, update itself concurrently. You see here it's running. It's just that my graphic display card does not show it in real time, but on your own computers this should be able to work, and thereafter it will give the best possible result. So again, what I will do now is I will stop the solver so that this session does not take too long. For my computer, this doesn't show up, but I think by the time yours have done, you should be able to see that the correct result is one particular opening, which is good, and click OK. Okay, so just to understand in detail how to connect the grasshopper definition. Okay, essentially this is the same portion that we have had from the radiation analysis. So there's a surface, there is this particular surface below. The building context is the envelope around it. The additional context over here is this surface that I was showing you via the facade, which I've hidden, with a solid intersection between the windows here that have been multiplied, right, according to this. So what is happening in this logic is that I've created a point. This is the base point, which can also be moved around, right? I can move this around, it will update itself. And then I moved this point, copied this point 0.6 meters to the side. So even as I update this will be a different kind of shape of the window. I can also reduce this. This is the height of this particular point, and this is the height of this particular point. Okay, so we can always update this. You on your faster computers, you can also update it such that the optimization also takes in all of these number sliders as parameters for your genome. Okay, and what this particular part of the window does is that it takes this window and it will copy it how many several times by 1 meter. Okay, so as of now this is 1 unit. I can change this to 2, so it copies it. It makes 2 copies of this at 1 meter apart. If I were to adjust this, you can see that it changes the position of the window, and this can duplicate 3 windows, 5 windows, 7 windows. If it's more, it will go out of range, but that's okay, that doesn't matter. Right, so now if I were to do, I can do this now. I can reduce this again, and I can double click and say, for example, now I want to maximize my solver. I can also enable a minimal runtime, a maximum runtime limit. So let's say, for example, I can change this to, instead of 1 hour, I can change this to 0 hours and maybe to a maximum of 1 minute. So under solvers, now I can start the solver. Okay, so immediately runs this. It tries to max it out for the windows, but as you can see here, it's also running the analysis concurrently. And technically this will end within a minute of running, but I guess now it already has arrived at the result. I can just stop this now for now. Okay, so it knows that it has to have, say, 6 copies. Oh no, so to the computer it thinks that the 7 copies are the best iteration. Probably there's some bug here, but that's why you always have to qualitatively check the end results of optimization solvers, because as I mentioned earlier, the optimization solver gives you what it perceives as the best possible answer within the shortest amount of time, but not necessarily the best answer. Okay, so all of these files will be in the link, and you can try to experiment with this example. It's very straightforward. That's all for this video.